Let me tell you something I've never said out loud the right way. I've flown intercepts for almost 11 years, up off the East Coast mostly. You launch, you climb, you go find the airplane that stopped talking. 9 times out of 10 it's nothing. A guy fell asleep. A radio knob got bumped. Some weekend pilot got distracted by the view and forgot the most important rule we have up there, which is simple: you keep talking. So when the horn went off that morning, I didn't feel anything special. I want you to understand that. There was no music, no feeling in my gut. Nothing told me this one was different. I was holding a paper coffee cup, and I remember setting it down on the duty desk a little too hard, and some of it spilled, and the only thought in my head was that somebody was going to have to clean that up later. That's the truth of it. The biggest day of my life started with spilled coffee and a face that hadn't woken up yet. My name doesn't matter much for this. They called me Hollow. Most of us have a call sign that started as a joke and stuck. Mine came from a night I'd rather not get into, but that's what was painted under my canopy. Hollow. Remember that word. It's going to mean something different by the end of this. It was a Tuesday in October. The kind of cold morning where the sky is so clean it almost hurts to look at it. No clouds. Just that hard, polished blue you only get when the air has all the moisture wrung out of it. We were sitting alert. That means you're already suited up, already fed, already bored. You sit in a ready room with the heater clicking, and you wait for a sound you hope you never hear and secretly hope you do, because waiting is the worst part of any job. The horn went at 9:14 in the morning. I know because I looked at the clock when I stood up. You learn to do that. Time matters later when people ask you questions. The controller's voice came over before we even hit the jets. Scramble, scramble, scramble. Unknown rider, single contact, lost comms, lost transponder, descending. Lost transponder is the part that wakes you up. See, an airplane carries a little box that tells everyone who it is and where it is. When that box goes dark on its own while the plane is still flying, that's not a guy falling asleep. That's something broke, or somebody wanted it dark, and you don't know which one until you put your own eyes on it. I ran. My wingman that day was a kid we called Pinto. Real name's Andrew. Good stick, quiet, the kind of guy who reads the checklist twice when once would do. I was glad it was him. If this turned into something, I wanted somebody steady on my wing, not somebody loud. The crew chiefs had the jets already turning. You climb that ladder, you drop into the seat, and there's this moment where the canopy comes down and the whole world goes quiet and small. Just you and the glass and 100 lights waking up around you. We were airborne in under 5 minutes. Here's a thing most people don't know about the F-22. It is not a kind airplane. It's beautiful, sure. People take pictures of it at air shows and think it looks like the future. But up close it's all sharp angles and held back violence. It does not want to fly slow. It wants to go up and it wants to go fast, and it makes you feel that the whole time, like you're holding the leash on something that's stronger than you are and is just being polite about it. That morning, I needed it to be patient, and I didn't know yet how patient it was going to have to be. We climbed out over the water and turned north. Control was feeding us numbers the whole way. Hollow, your contact is 270 for 41 miles, altitude 29,000 and descending slow. No squawk, no reply on guard. Guard is the emergency frequency. Everybody monitors it. Everybody. If you're flying anything bigger than a kite and you've got a working radio, you can hear guard. The fact that this airplane wasn't answering on guard meant one of two things. Either they couldn't hear us, or there was nobody left to listen. I pushed it up. The world started moving faster underneath me. 29,000 feet up, the curve of the earth gets honest with you. You can see it bend. You can see the haze layer way down low where all the regular people are, drinking their coffee, dropping their kids at school, having a completely normal Tuesday. And somewhere out ahead of me, A single airplane was falling out of the sky one slow foot at a time, with nobody saying a word. It took us about 9 minutes to get eyes on it. When you finally see your contact, it never looks the way you expect. On the radar, it's just a little brick of light. But the real thing is so much smaller, so much more alone. You come up on it and your brain does this thing where it goes, that's it. That's the whole emergency. That little thing. It was a turboprop. A single-engine job, the expensive kind. The kind a successful man buys when he retires and decides he's not done flying. Sleek nose, big four-blade prop, the body shaped like a teardrop somebody had polished for 100 hours, white with a blue stripe down the side. The propeller was still turning. That was good. That meant the engine had something. But the airplane was dead. I don't know how else to say it. You can tell when an airplane has electricity and when it doesn't, even from outside, even from a few 100 feet away. The nav lights were off. The strobes were off. In the cockpit, where there should have been the soft glow of a dozen screens, there was nothing. Just dark glass and the reflection of that hard blue sky. I slid up alongside, off the left wing, close enough to see in. And that's when my whole morning fell through the floor. There were 2 people in that airplane. The man in the left seat, the pilot's seat, was slumped over, not asleep. You can tell asleep. Asleep has a posture to it, a kind of softness. This was different. His head was down and tipped at an angle that no comfortable person ever sits in. His hands were off the controls. One of them hung down beside the seat. And in the right seat, there was a child. A little girl. She couldn't have been more than 9 or 10 years old. She had both hands wrapped around the control yoke, white knuckle tight, and she was staring straight ahead through the windshield with the most frozen, terrible expression I have ever seen on a human face. I keyed my mic. My voice didn't sound like mine. Control hollow, be advised. I have eyes on the cockpit. Left seat is incapacitated. I say again, the pilot is down, and there's a kid. There's a child in the right seat flying this thing. There was a pause on the radio, just half a second, but in that half second I could hear the whole world stop and listen. Hollow control, say again your last. There's a little girl, I said. She's alone up here. The pilot is not moving. She's got the wheel. Control, she's the only one flying this airplane. You have to understand what was happening inside that cabin. I learned the full story later, all the pieces, from the recordings and from the people who lived it. But up there in the moment, I only had what I could see through 2 panes of glass. The man was her grandfather. His name was Walter. Everybody called him Walt. He'd flown for the airlines for 31 years, and after he retired he bought himself this beautiful turboprop, the one airplane he'd always wanted, and he started doing the thing he loved most in the world, which was taking his granddaughter flying. Her name was Mara. She was 9. That morning they were headed up the coast to see her cousins. A 2-hour hop, a trip they'd made a dozen times, clear skies. Easy day. Walt had let her hold the controls before. Every grandkid of a pilot gets to fly the plane while Grandpa keeps a hand close. It was a game between them. He taught her the words pilots use. He taught her to read the big round dial that shows how high you are. He taught her, half joking, half serious the way grandfathers are, what to do if he ever, quote, took a nap he couldn't wake up from. She thought it was a game. It stopped being a game somewhere around 29,000 feet, when Walt put his hand to his chest and said something she couldn't quite hear, and then went quiet in a way that grandpas are not supposed to go quiet. And then the airplane started doing strange things. The screens flickered, warning lights came on, a horn began to sound, this awful steady note, and she didn't know how to make it stop. And then, one by one, the lights went out. The screens went black. The radio she'd watched her grandpa talk into 100 times went silent and dead. 9 years old, 5.5 miles up in the air. Her grandfather slumped beside her and not answering. and every single thing in that cockpit that could have told her what to do had just gone dark. That's what was happening while I sat out there on her wing, a grown man in a $50 million fighter jet, completely unable to reach her. I want to stop here and tell you about the worst part. The worst part wasn't the danger. We deal with danger. You train for danger until it's almost boring. The worst part was being useless. I had every tool the most powerful Air Force on Earth could give a man. I had radar that could count the rivets on her wing. I had radios that could talk to the whole eastern seaboard. I had a jet that could fly rings around her all day long. And I could not help her, because her radio was dead. You cannot reach somebody whose radio is dead. It doesn't matter how loud you yell into the mic. It doesn't matter how good your equipment is. If the box on the other end has no power, you are just a man talking to himself in a sealed metal room. I flew up beside her. I got close. I rocked my wings. That's an old signal. It means follow me. I'll lead you home. She didn't react. I don't think she even saw me at first. She was locked onto that windshield like if she looked away the sky would swallow her. I tried hand signals. I pointed down. I pointed at myself, then ahead, the come with me gesture. Nothing. And the whole time that beautiful dead airplane kept sinking. Slow, patient, a few feet every second, the kind of descent that doesn't feel like falling but absolutely is. She was going to fly straight into the ground at a couple 100 miles an hour, and the only thing standing between her and that was a 9-year-old's 2 hands on a wheel. And I, with all my power, all my training, all my expensive machinery, I could do nothing but watch. I have never felt smaller in my life. "Pinto," I said, "get on the horn with control. I want her airplane's tail number run. I want to know who's in it. I want a phone number for anybody who knows that little girl. Now." "Copy." Hollow, working it. My wingman peeled off a little to make the calls. I stayed glued to her wing. And I started talking to her. I know how that sounds. She couldn't hear me. There was no radio, but I couldn't not do it. I keyed the mic and I just started talking, slow and steady, the way you'd talk to somebody standing on a ledge. "Hey," I said. "Hey, sweetheart, I see you. I'm right here. You're not alone up here, okay? You see me. Look out your left window. Look at me." "Nothing." "I know you're scared, I know, but you are doing so good. You hear me. You've got that wheel and you're keeping the wings level, and that is exactly right. That is exactly right. Just keep doing that." The cold blue sky went on forever in every direction. My own breathing was loud in my mask. And down below, getting closer one slow foot at a time, was the green and brown patchwork of the earth, waiting. I checked her altitude against mine. 26,000 feet. We had time, not a lot but some. And then Pinto came back on the radio, and his voice was tight in a way I'd never heard from that steady, quiet kid. "Hollow, I got something. The grandfather, the pilot, he's a retired airline captain. And Control says," he stopped and I heard him breathe. "Control says the family's on the phone. The girl's mom is on the line right now with the tower. And Hollow." "Say it." "The mom says the grandpa taught her something, a radio thing, a backup. She says there might be a way." I felt something move in my chest for the first time all morning. "What way?" I said. "Pinto, what way? What way, Pinto? Tell me right now." I could hear him talking to Control and Control talking to the mother all at once. This chain of voices, each one a link. And at the far end of it, a woman in a kitchen somewhere with a phone pressed so hard against her ear it probably left a mark. Pinto came back. Okay, here it is. The grandfather flew old airplanes too, little ones before the fancy one, and he carried a handheld radio, a backup, battery-powered, has its own little antenna. Hollow, it doesn't need the airplane's power, it runs on its own. A handheld. I knew exactly what he meant. A lot of pilots carry one. It's about the size of a TV remote, A chunky little thing you can hold in one hand, and the whole point of it is that when everything else dies, that one little radio still talks. It's the lifeboat. The thing you keep in the seat pocket and never think about until the day everything else goes black. Does she know where it is? I said. Does she know how to work it? A pause. The mother's voice somewhere far away, fast and frightened. He kept it in the side pocket by his seat, Pinto said. Mom says it's blue. She says Marin's seen him use it. But Hollow, the kid, can't reach the dad's side. She's strapped in, and she's 9. I looked across the gap at that little airplane. The girl was still locked on the windshield, both hands on the wheel, and in the seat beside her, in the pocket she could not reach, was maybe the only thing in the world that could save her life. Here's the cruel math of it. To get the radio, she'd have to let go of the wheel. To let go of the wheel, she'd have to trust the airplane to fly itself for a few seconds. And she didn't know that it would. She was 9. As far as she knew, the second she took her hands off, the whole sky would come apart. But there was something she didn't know that I did. That airplane wanted to fly straight. It's built that way. Most are. Left alone, trimmed the way it was, it would hold its wings level and just keep gliding down nice and gentle, the same as it had been doing for the last 10 minutes. The wheel in her hands wasn't really doing much. She was holding on for comfort, not control. She was holding on because letting go felt like dying. I had to find a way to tell her that. And I had no radio she could hear. So I did the only thing left. I got closer. I slid that fighter in tight, tighter than the book says, tighter than I'd ever flown next to a civilian airplane in my life, close enough that I could see the freckles on her nose, close enough that if she turned her head she'd be looking straight into my cockpit. And I started doing the one thing she might understand. I held up my hands. I let go of my own stick, the jet held itself, the way I knew her airplane would hold itself, and I lifted both hands up where she could see them through the glass, palms open, fingers spread. Look at me. My hands are off, and I'm still flying. I'm fine, see? Then I put my hands back, then I lifted them again. Off, on, off, on. You can let go. It's okay to let go. It took 4 times. On the 4th time, she turned her head. I will remember that for the rest of my life. This small white face turning slow like it cost her something, and her eyes finding me through 2 layers of glass and 100 feet of freezing air. Wide, red-rimmed, scared down to the bone. But looking. I lifted my hands one more time. Slow, big, off the controls, see. I'm okay. The airplane is okay. Then I pointed very deliberately, very slow down and to her right, to the pocket, to the side of her grandfather's seat. Her eyes followed my finger. And then, God help her, she shook her head. A tiny, fast, terrified shake. No, I can't let go. I nodded back slow. Yes, you can do this. I did the hands thing again. Off, on. I held my own wings dead level the whole time so she could see, look, no hands, still flat, still flying. And then I did something I wasn't trained for and couldn't have explained to a single instructor I ever had. I put my gloved hand flat against the inside of my canopy, palm out, reaching toward her across the gap. Just reaching, the way you reach for someone you can't touch, the oldest gesture there is. She stared at it. And then this 9-year-old girl, 5.5 miles up in the sky, with her grandfather dying beside her, did the bravest thing I have ever watched a human being do. She let go of the wheel. The airplane didn't fall. Of course it didn't. I knew it wouldn't. But she didn't, and I watched her face in the half-second after she released that yoke, watched her flinch, brace for the world to end, and then watched it not end. Watched the airplane just keep on, wings level, steady as a church, flying itself the way it had been all along. I saw something change in her face. Not relief. It was too early for relief, but something, a crack in the panic, a first thin thread of maybe. She twisted in her seat. Her little arm went down and across, reaching for the pocket on her grandfather's side, and she had to lean over him to do it, lean across his slumped shoulder, and I can't imagine what that was like for her, having to climb half over the body of the man she loved most in the world to reach for a blue plastic box. She came up with it in her hand. Even from where I sat, I could see her fingers shaking. The little radio was almost too big for her grip. She held it up and stared at it like it was written in a language she didn't speak. "Pinto," I said low, "she's got it. She's got the radio in her hand. Tell the mom. Tell her now. I need to know what frequency that thing is set to, and I need to know what to tell that little girl to do, and I need it in words a 9-year-old understands. Go." The whole chain lit up. Mother to control to Pinto to me. And I learned later that on the other end, that mother, her name was Diane, was the steadiest she would be all day, because she'd realized something. She'd realized that her panic was no good to anybody, and that her daughter's life now depended on her being calm enough to remember small things her father had said in passing over the years. She remembered. God bless her, she remembered. "Channel's already set," Pinto relayed. "Grandpa kept it on guard, the emergency channel. Mom says he always kept it on guard, it was a thing with him, so it should already be on the right frequency. Marin just has to turn it on and push the button on the side to talk." Already on guard. That meant if she turned it on, I'd hear her, right there, on the channel I was already listening to, the same channel half the aircraft on the eastern seaboard were monitoring. "How does she turn it on?" I said. "Pinto, the kid is holding a radio she doesn't know how to use. Walk me through it." "Knob on top," he said. "Mom says there's a knob on top. You turn it, it clicks. That's the power and the volume both. Just turn it till it clicks." I looked across at her. She was still staring at the thing. And I did the only translation I had. I held up my own hand and mimed it, a twisting motion, fingers turning an invisible knob, slow and clear. Twist, twist. I pointed at the top of where the radio was in her hands. She looked at me, she looked at the radio. She turned the knob. I didn't hear anything at first. Just the steady hiss of guard, the empty channel sound, the sound of a frequency that nobody is talking on, which is the loneliest sound in aviation, this soft, endless wash of static like the ocean at night. Then close, too close, blowing out the mic, there was breathing. Fast, shallow, the breathing of a child trying very hard not to cry. Every hair on my body stood up. She'd done it, the radio was on, the channel was live. For the first time in 20 minutes there was a way through, a thread, one thin thread between her and the rest of the human race. I keyed my mic, and I had to make my voice the calmest it has ever been in my life, because everything now depended on the next thing she heard not scaring her worse. "Hello," I said, soft, like talking to a kid you found lost in a parking lot. "Hello, can you hear me? If you can hear me, I'm the airplane on your left. Look out your window, that's me. I see you. You did so good turning that radio on. That was perfect." The breathing caught, hitched. And then a voice, the smallest voice you ever heard, squeezed thin with fear, blown out by a button held too hard, but a voice. "Is anybody there? Please, please, my grandpa won't wake up." I have replayed that sentence more times than I can count. Please, my grandpa won't wake up. There's a thing that happens to you in this job if you do it long enough. You build a kind of wall. You have to. You see things and you do things, and the wall is how you keep functioning. Mine had been up for 11 years and I thought it was pretty solid. That sentence went through it like it was paper. But you don't let them hear that. You never let them hear that. So I made my voice into the warmest, surest thing I could build, and I pressed the button. "I'm here," I said. "I'm right here, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere. My name is Eli. What's your name?" A breath, a swallow. Marin. "Marin, that's a good name. Marin, you are doing an incredible job. I need you to hear me on that. You turned that radio on all by yourself and now we can talk, and that means we're going to figure this out together. Okay? You and me. Can you say okay? A long pause, the static washed. Okay. Good, that's so good. Now, Marin, I need you to do one thing for me, and it's an easy one. Your grandpa, he's a pilot, right? A really good one. The best one. My throat did something I didn't let into my voice. The best one. Yeah, I bet he is. And Marin, I bet your grandpa taught you something. I bet he taught you a special pilot word. A name you say on the radio so everybody knows it's you. Pilots call it a call sign. Did your grandpa ever teach you a call sign? And there was the longest pause of the whole flight. So long I thought maybe she'd dropped the radio. So long I thought I'd pushed her too far. Then in that thin, small voice, steadier now, the way kids get steadier when you give them something they actually know. He calls me little bird. And up there in the cold and the blue, in $50 million of fighter jet, with all my training and all my power, I hollow, the man with the empty word painted under his canopy, had to take my hand off the mic for a second so she wouldn't hear what that did to me. Here's something about guard that I keep forgetting people don't know. When you talk on the emergency frequency, you are not talking to one person. You are talking to everyone, every airliner at 35,000 feet, every little weekend flyer puttering along at 3,000, every control tower, every center, every military jet in the air for a few hundred miles. They all keep one ear on guard at all times. It's a rule. It's the one channel nobody is allowed to ignore. So when that little voice said he calls me little bird, it didn't just reach me. It reached all of them. I found this out slowly over the next few minutes as the strangest thing I've ever witnessed in the sky began to happen. But in the moment, all I knew was that I had to keep her talking and keep her flying and somehow, between the two of us, get that airplane down out of the sky in one piece. The altimeter was the problem. She was at 23,000 feet now and still sinking. Slow, steady, a few feet every second. And here's the part that scares the daylights out of any pilot: she was over land. Not flat land. Hill country. Ridges and valleys and trees. The ground out there wasn't at sea level. It was reaching up at her, thousands of feet of it, and the gap between her airplane and the dirt was closing from both ends at once. I did the math in my head, and I didn't like the answer. We had maybe 15 minutes, maybe a little more if the glide was kind. And in 15 minutes I had to teach a 9-year-old to fly an airplane she couldn't see the instruments of, with no engine power to climb, down through the mountains to a runway she'd never heard of. So I started small. Marin, I said, little bird, I love that name. Your grandpa's got good taste. Now, little bird, I'm going to be your co-pilot. Do you know what a co-pilot is? The other pilot, the one who helps. That's exactly right. So that's my job now. I'm your co-pilot. And co-pilots and pilots, we work as a team. So here's the first thing. I need you to put both your hands back on the wheel. Nice and easy. Just rest them there. You don't have to squeeze. The airplane likes to fly straight all by itself. Did you notice that? When you let go to get the radio. A pause. It didn't crash. It didn't crash because it's a good airplane and it knows how to fly. You just have to keep it pointed the right way. That's all flying is, really. Pointing it the right way. Can you put your hands back on for me? Okay, both hands. Both hands, gentle. Through the glass I watched her tuck the little radio into her lap between her knees, holding it there, and put both hands back on the yoke. Light this time, not the death grip from before. I could see it in her shoulders. They'd come down half an inch. That half inch was everything. Then guard came alive. I want you to picture this, because I still don't fully believe it, and I was there. A voice broke in. A man's voice, calm, professional, with the relaxed drawl every airline captain in the world seems to have. Little bird, this is Coastal 488. We're a big jet a little ways above you. We heard you, sweetheart. We're up here too and we're listening. You keep talking to the fighter pilot. He's the one flying close. We're just here so you know there's a whole lot of us pulling for you. You're not alone up there. You hear me, little bird?" I keyed up before she could get scared by the new voice. "Marin, that's another pilot way up high. He's a friend. He just wanted to say hi." And then another. "Little bird, this is November 6 to Romeo. Little blue Cessna down low. I've got grandkids your age, honey. We're all listening." And another and another. A flight school instructor, a cargo hauler somewhere over the next state, a medevac helicopter, a retired controller who happened to have his scanner on in his kitchen. Within about 3 minutes, the emergency frequency, that lonely hissing channel, had turned into the most crowded, gentlest place in the sky. Pilots are a strange tribe. We give each other a hard time. We complain about each other on the radio. But the second a kid's voice came over guard saying her grandpa wouldn't wake up, every one of those people went quiet and careful and kind, and they stayed mostly silent so I could work, and they just stayed, listening, witnessing, so that little girl would never once feel like she was up there by herself. I've flown a long time. That's the proudest I have ever been to belong to anything. Control had to thin them out, gently, so the channel stayed clear enough for me to work. But they let the airliner, Coastal 488, stay close on the air, because that captain had a voice like warm bread and Marin had latched onto it. "Little bird," I said, "we've got a lot of friends now, but it's still just you and me flying, okay? You listen to me and I'll get you home. Deal?" "A deal." "Now I need to ask you a hard question and I need you to be brave. Can you do that?" A breath. "Oh, yes." "Your grandpa, can you reach over and touch his shoulder for me? Give him a little shake. Sometimes grown-ups are just sleeping really deep. Can you try?" I watched her do it. Saw the small hand go out, touch the slumped shoulder, push. Once. Twice. Saw her say something I couldn't hear off the mic, her grandfather's name, probably Grandpa, wake up. Saw him not move. And then I heard it come back over the radio, and it was the worst sound of the whole day, worse than the breathing, worse than anything. A small voice gone completely flat with a knowledge too big for it. "He's not waking up. He's not, his face is funny. Eli, his face is funny and his hand is cold." You have to make a choice in a moment like that. You can tell the truth, or you can give the kid the thing that keeps her flying. And those two were not the same thing, and I had about 1 second to decide. I decided. "Marin, little bird, listen to me. Your grandpa is taking the longest, deepest rest. And right now, the very best thing you can do for him, the thing that would make him proudest, is to fly his airplane like he taught you. Because he taught you, didn't he? He taught you all of this. So every second you keep those wings level, that's your grandpa. That's him teaching you. He's still flying with you, little bird. You're doing it together. Do you understand me?" The static washed. And then, in a voice that had decided something, a voice with a steel thread in it I hadn't heard before, she said, "Okay, I'll fly it for him." And she did. I watched her square her little shoulders, watched her face set. Something happened to that child in that moment that I don't have the words for even now. The fear didn't leave. You could still hear it shaking under everything. But she put it somewhere. She put it behind her grandfather. She turned it into something she could fly an airplane with. 9 years old. I've flown with grown men who couldn't have done what she did in that minute. Now we had to actually get her down. And this is where it got technical, and where I had to teach the hardest, fastest flying lesson of my life, to a student who couldn't see her instruments and couldn't reach her throttle and was sitting next to her dead grandfather. The good news, and there was some, was the engine. That 4-blade prop was still turning. The airplane had lost its electrical system, all the screens and radios and lights, but the engine had something, enough to keep the propeller pulling, enough that we weren't a pure glider. That bought us altitude time. That was the difference between a desperate emergency and a catastrophe, and I thanked God for it. The bad news was everything else. She couldn't read her altitude, the gauges were dark. She couldn't read her speed. She couldn't talk to a tower, couldn't tune a new frequency, couldn't do a single thing a pilot normally does to find a runway and put an airplane on it. But she had me. I had every instrument in the world. My radar told me her speed. My systems told me her altitude better than her own dead gauges ever could. I could see the terrain ahead of her, every ridge, every valley, every flat place big enough to matter, painted out in front of me in cold, hard data. I was going to be her eyes. I was going to be her instruments. I was going to fly formation on her all the way to the ground and tell her, foot by foot, exactly what to do. Marin, I said, here's the plan. I'm going to stay right beside you the whole way. You'll always be able to see me out your left window. And I'm going to tell you everything to do, nice and slow, one little thing at a time. You just listen to my voice. Don't worry about anything else in the whole sky. Just my voice and the wheel in your hands. Can you do that? Just your voice. Just my voice and little bird. There's an airport up ahead. It's got a nice long runway all for you. We're going to go land on it together. And that's when Pinto came back on, low and tight on our private channel, the one she couldn't hear, and said the thing that turned the last of my confidence to ice. Hollow, that airport. The weather just rolled in off the ridge. There's cloud on the field. She's going to have to come down through a layer she can't see in, and that kid can't fly instruments. Nobody can teach a 9-year-old to fly blind in the next 10 minutes. I looked ahead, and there it was, a gray wall of cloud building over the hills, sliding across the only runway for 50 miles. Let me explain the cloud problem because it's the whole thing. When you fly into a cloud, you go blind, completely. There's no up, no down, no horizon, just gray pressing on the glass from every side. And the cruel part is that your own body lies to you in there. Your inner ear tells you you're turning when you're level, climbing when you're diving. Pilots have died in clouds that were only a few 100 feet thick because their own bodies fooled them into rolling the airplane right into the ground. The only way through a cloud is to ignore your body and trust your instruments. Every needle, every dial, telling you the truth your senses won't. Marin had no instruments, they were dark. And she had a 9-year-old's inner ear, which was about to start screaming lies at her the second she lost sight of the horizon. Pinto, I said low on our channel, tell me about that layer, how thick, tops and bottoms, I need numbers. Tops around 5,500, bottoms maybe 1,500 above the field. So she's got, call it 3,000-4,000 feet of solid cloud to come through. And it's not smooth, hollow. There's bumps in it. 4,000 feet of blind. I sat there on her wing and I ran every option I had, and most of them were bad. You can't talk a kid through 4,000 feet of instrument flying. You just can't. Even seeing my jet beside her wouldn't help, because the moment we entered the cloud she wouldn't be able to see me either. I'd be 3 feet off her wing and completely invisible. That was the cruelest part. The one promise I'd made her, you'll always be able to see me out your left window, was the exact promise the cloud was going to take away. I keyed up to her, kept it easy. Don't ever let them hear the math. Marin, how you doing over there, little bird? Okay, my arms are tired. I bet they are. You've been flying a long time. You're allowed to be tired. You can switch, rest one hand in your lap for a second, then the other. The airplane's still flying. Just keep it pointed at the sky in front of you. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you something, and I don't want you to be scared, because we're going to handle it together. In a few minutes we're going to fly into some clouds. You ever fly through a cloud with your grandpa? A pause. Yeah, they're like fog you can't see. That's exactly right. You're smart. So here's the thing about clouds. When we go in, you won't be able to see me anymore. But Marin, listen, I'll still be right here, 3 feet away. I never leave. You won't see me, but you'll hear me the whole time. My voice doesn't go away in the cloud. You understand? You lose the picture, but you never lose the voice. The static washed, then. Promise. And I had to be careful with that word, because I was about to make a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. I promise you'll hear my voice the whole way down. That one I could keep. I held on to the difference between see me and hear me like it was the only honest thing I had left. We started down for real. I had to teach her descent without an altimeter, without an airspeed gauge, without anything, using only my voice and my own instruments reading her airplane from the outside. So I made it into the simplest thing in the world. Marin, I want you to push the wheel forward just a tiny bit, like pretend you're pushing a button very slowly. Tiny. There. Feel the nose go down a little. Yeah, it's going down. Perfect. Now hold it just like that. We're going downhill now, real gentle, like a slide that's barely tilted. I'll tell you when to stop. On my instruments, I watched her speed. The danger with a nose-down glide is you build up too much speed, and then you're going so fast the ground arrives before you're ready. I watched the numbers and fed her tiny corrections. A little less, little bird. Bring the nose up just a hair. There, hold that. Like this. Exactly like that. You're flying a perfect glide. Do you know how good you're doing right now? Grown-up pilots train for years to fly this smooth. Really? Really? And I heard the smallest thing then. The smallest, most heartbreaking thing. She laughed. Just a tiny, exhausted breath of a laugh, the kind a kid makes when they're scared and proud at the same time. That sound got me down through the next 1,000 feet. I'm not ashamed to say it. Coastal 488, the big airliner, had stayed up high and quiet this whole time, but as we came down toward the cloud, the captain keyed up once, soft. Little bird, this is your friend in the big jet. We've got to head on now, sweetheart. We can't fly as slow as you. But before we go, every single person up here is so proud of you. You're the bravest pilot in the sky today. You hear me? The bravest one. Now you listen to your co-pilot and you fly that airplane home. Bye, she said. Thank you for staying. Anytime, little bird, anytime. And the big jet peeled away east, and I watched it go. And I understood that it was now down to me and Pinto and a 9-year-old and 4,000 feet of cloud. The gray wall was right in front of us. You could see the wisps starting, the first thin streamers reaching past the canopy. Below it, hidden, was the airport, the runway, the flat ground, everything we were trying to reach. And between us and all of it was the blind. Marin, little bird, we're about to go into the clouds now. Couple things first. Both hands on the wheel, sit up nice and straight. And here's the most important thing I'm going to tell you all day, so listen close. When we're in the cloud, your tummy is going to lie to you. A lie to me. Yeah, your body's going to tell you the airplane is turning or tipping or doing something scary. And it's going to feel really real, but it'll be lying. The airplane is fine. You just keep the wheel exactly where it is, nice and still, and you do what I say even if your tummy says different. My voice tells the truth. Your tummy tells lies. Who do you listen to? A beat. And your voice. My voice, every time. Here we go, little bird, nice and easy, wings level, I've got you. And we went into the gray. She vanished. That fast. 1 second I had that little white airplane 3 feet off my wing, and the next there was nothing but cloud, this featureless wet gray with no shape to it at all. I couldn't see her. I held my exact position on instruments, formation flying on an airplane I could no longer see, trusting my numbers the same way I needed her to trust my voice. And I talked. I never stopped talking. I made my voice the only steady thing in her whole gray world. You're doing great, little bird. Wings level. Little bit of nose down. I'm right here. Right beside you. Talk to me. Tell me what your tummy's saying. Her voice came back tight, climbing toward panic. It feels like we're turning. Eli, it feels like we're going sideways, it feels. That's the lie, remember, that's the lie I told you about. You're not turning. I can see it on my instruments, you are dead level, perfect, beautiful. Don't move the wheel, keep it still. Trust my voice. But it really feels. I know it feels real, I know, but it's not. You're flying perfect. Hold still for me. Count with me. 1, 2, 3. There, still level. See, it passed. Your tummy lied and we didn't listen and we're fine. We're fine. We're fine again. Little bit of nose down, wings level. Good, good girl. We came down through that cloud one careful foot at a time, the two of us, blind, with nothing connecting us but a frequency. I'd call a correction, she'd make it, I'd watch the numbers on my instruments respond. Trim, speed, heading, foot by foot by foot. And then, hollow, Pinto said on our channel, and there was something in his voice. Bottom's coming up, 1,200 feet, she's about to break out. And hollow, the runway's not lined up. She's coming out of the cloud pointed wrong. She's going to pop out and the airport's going to be off to her right and she's going to have about 90 seconds to turn, line up, and land an airplane she can't fly with the ground right there. 90 seconds. The gray outside my canopy started to thin. She broke out of the cloud at 1,100 feet, and the world came back all at once. Gray sky above, green hills below, wet and close and rushing, and they're off to her right, just like Pinto said. The long gray strip of runway, sitting there at the wrong angle, waiting. Little bird, I said, you did it, you flew through the whole cloud, I can see you again. Look out your left window, there I am. A sound came over the radio that I will keep until I die. A sob and a laugh at the exact same time. Relief and terror braided together so tight you couldn't pull them apart. I can see you, Eli, I can see you. You see me? I'm right here, I never left. Now little bird, I need the bravest flying of the whole day right now, these next 2 minutes, and then it's over and you can rest. There's our runway off to your right. We're going to turn toward it nice and gentle and we're going to go land this airplane. You and me. Last part. You ready? The ground was 1,000 feet down and reaching up. The runway was off the nose and not lined up. And a 9-year-old girl, who an hour ago had been holding a wheel because letting go felt like dying, took a breath I could hear over the radio and said, I'm ready, tell me what to do. The turn was the part that scared me most. Going straight is easy. The airplane wants to go straight. But to line up with that runway, Marin had to turn, and turning means banking. Tipping the wings, and tipping the wings is the exact thing that had been lying to her stomach in the cloud. I had to ask a terrified 9-year-old to do on purpose the one thing her whole body had spent the last 10 minutes screaming at her not to do. And I had to do it gently. Too steep and she'd lose altitude she didn't have. Too shallow and she'd overshoot the runway and there wasn't a second runway behind it. Marin, I said, we're going to turn now, toward me, toward the left. And I need you to turn the wheel just a little bit, like turning a doorknob real slow. The airplane's going to tip a little, it's okay. It's supposed to. I'm turning with you. Look, I'm tipping too, we do it together. I banked my jet so she could see it, so she'd have something to copy. Now, little bit of left, gentle, turn the doorknob. I watched the little airplane begin to come around. Her bank was shaky, jerky, a kid's hands fighting their own fear, but it was turning, swinging slow toward the runway. That's it, that's perfect, keep coming, little more there. Now wheel back to the middle, straighten out, stop turning. She rolled level, and the runway slid out of the corner of the windshield and came around to sit dead ahead of her, a long gray ribbon laid out in the green, pointing straight at her like it had been waiting all morning. Marin, look out your front window, what do you see? A breath caught in the radio. The runway, it's right in front of me. It's right in front of you. You lined up your own airplane, little bird, you did that. Now we go down and we land, last part, easiest part. You ready for the last part? I'm so tired, Eli. I know, baby, I know, just a little more. 90 more seconds and then you never have to fly again if you don't want to. Stay with me. 90 seconds. I learned later what was happening on the ground while we set up for that landing. The little airport had heard everything. Some of it over guard, the rest relayed from control. And by the time Marin broke out of that cloud, there wasn't a person within 20 miles who didn't know a 9-year-old was about to try to land an airplane onto their runway. The fire trucks were out. The little airport's whole staff, all 6 of them, were standing on the ramp looking up. The local sheriff had blocked the road. An ambulance was idling at the runway's edge, doors already open. People had driven in from the surrounding farms and stood at the fence, because word travels in country like that, and not one of them was talking. They were just watching the sky and the gray airplane coming down out of it. And somewhere in a kitchen 2 states away, a mother named Diane was still on the phone, still listening to every word relayed to her, her knuckles white, her whole life balanced on a frequency. But up there, I didn't know any of that yet. Up there it was still just me and Pinto and little Bird, and a runway coming up fast. Marin, the ground's going to start looking close now. That's good. That's supposed to happen. Don't let it scare you. Keep the nose pointed at the start of the runway, the very beginning of it. See where it starts. Yeah. Aim right there, wheel nice and still. Let it come down to you. The numbers on my instruments fell. 800 feet. 600. Her speed was good. I'd been nursing it the whole way, calling tiny corrections. The airplane was coming down a touch fast, but the runway was long, and that was the trade I'd take. 400 feet. The trees beside the runway rushing up green. You're doing it, little Bird. You're almost home. When I tell you, and only when I tell you, I'm going to have you pull back on the wheel, real gentle, to make the airplane stop coming down so fast right before the ground. Not yet. Wait for me. 200 feet. The runway threshold swelling in the windshield, the painted numbers on the pavement coming clear. Not yet, not yet. Keep it straight, keep it straight. 100 feet. 50. The ground rushing, the runway rising. Now, Marin, pull back. Gentle, gentle, pull the wheel back to you. There, hold it. I watched the nose come up. Watched the airplane's belly settle toward the runway. Watched it float, hang, the way airplanes do in that last impossible second. And the wheels touched. Bounced, touch again, stayed. And that beautiful dead airplane rolled out down the center line, slowing, with a 9-year-old at the controls and her grandfather still and silent beside her, until it came to a stop in the middle of the runway, props still turning, perfectly, exactly down. On the ground. Safe. I don't remember pulling up. I must have. I remember coming back around and seeing the fire trucks already rolling toward her, the ambulance, the little figures of people running across the ramp toward the airplane, and I remember my own voice over the radio, and I remember it didn't sound like a fighter pilot at all. It sounded like a man who'd been holding his breath for 40 minutes. You're down, little Bird. You're on the ground. You did it. You landed the airplane. You landed the airplane, Marin. It's over. It's all over. You're safe. For a second there was nothing, just the static. And then her voice came back, and it was wrung out and exhausted and very, very small, and it said the thing that none of us, not me, not Pinto, not Diane, not a single soul who heard the recording afterward has ever been able to forget. She didn't say I did it. She didn't say I'm scared or I'm safe or help my grandpa. She keyed that little blue radio one last time, and through her tears, in the voice of a child who had just flown an airplane out of the sky to save her own life, she said, "Eli, did I make Grandpa proud?" I had to land before I could answer her. I couldn't have spoken if I'd tried. But I parked that jet, and I got out, and I walked across that ramp past the fire trucks and the medics, past the people standing there with their hands over their mouths, and they'd already lifted her down out of the airplane, and she was standing on the pavement in a too big jacket with the blue radio still clutched in both hands, looking up at the sky, looking for me. And I knelt down in front of her, this stranger in a flight suit, and I said the only true thing there was. Little bird, there has never been a grandpa prouder of anybody than yours is of you right now. Not in the whole history of the world. You hear me? He's proud. I promise you he's proud. And she dropped that radio and grabbed onto me, and I held her while she shook. This 9-year-old who just done the bravest thing I have ever seen a person do. And over the top of her head, I looked back at that airplane sitting quiet on the runway, and I thought about Walt, who taught his granddaughter a call sign as a game, never knowing that the game would be the thing that kept her alive. Her grandfather didn't make it. I won't pretend otherwise. It was his heart, and it had happened up there at altitude fast, and there was nothing anyone on the ground or in the sky could have done. But here's the thing I keep coming back to, the thing I tell people when they ask me how I'm still in this job after a day like that. He saved her anyway. Every word he ever said to her in that cockpit, every game of fly the plane little bird, every time he pointed at the dial and made her read it back, every joke about the nap he couldn't wake up from, he was teaching her the whole time. He just didn't know it. He poured himself into that little girl, year after year, one flight at a time, and on the worst morning of her life, all of it came back out of her hands and her steady little voice and brought her home. That's not nothing. That's the opposite of nothing. They call me hollow. I told you to remember that. It came from an empty place, a bad night, a man who'd let too much of himself burn out and didn't much care. I don't feel hollow anymore. I fly intercepts to this day. Same squadron. Most mornings it's nothing, a guy asleep, a bumped knob, somebody who forgot to keep talking. And every single time the horn goes off before I climb that ladder, I think about a little blue radio on the emergency frequency, and a voice the size of a sparrow saying he calls me little bird, and I remember what we're actually up there for. Marin's grown now. She sends me a card every October. She signs them all the same way, and it gets me every single time. Still flying, still your co-pilot, little bird. So that's the story. That's the whole thing, the way it really happened, the way I've never quite managed to say it out loud until now. You spend your whole life thinking you'd be the one to save somebody. And then a 9-year-old, 5.5 miles up in a dead airplane, with nothing but a radio and the things her grandfather taught her, reaches down past all your training and all your power and saves you. Keep talking. That's the rule. No matter how high you are, no matter how dark it gets, no matter how alone you feel up there. Keep talking. Somebody is always listening.